What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Mutual Connections, the show where we highlight professionals who are redefining how we think, work, and how we connect. I'm your host, Chris Walcher, and today's conversation explores one of the most important frontiers in technology, the space where human understanding meets machine intelligence. Our guest today is Mr. Brian Sutherland, AI product strategist and human-centered innovation advisor. Brian has spent his career helping organizations translate human insight into scalable performance, guiding product strategy, design, and AI enablement efforts that align technology to human need and enterprise value. He's seen a powerful truth across industries, and that is speed alone doesn't create competitive advantage. Signal fidelity does. That's when human empathy and machine precision move in rhythm. Companies unlock compounding returns through stronger retention, lower costs, and deeper trust. So if you've ever wondered how to build an intelligent system that feels intelligent, not just fast, this conversation is for you. And with that being said, my man Brian, welcome to the show, dude. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah, hey, and thank you for the invite. Thank you for hosting me here. I'm going to tell you though, that intro, I don't know how to put this. I usually just tell people, I just automate chat for a living. You know,
Come on.
I don't make it sound anywhere near as great as you made it sound.
No.
But
bro, we had to go all out for you. Look, Brian, I won't lie. I've been following you and your journey for a really long time. I'm so excited to hop into this discussion, especially in today's landscape where you see so many of the shiny new, oh, I've got my AI this and I've got my bot that and my small language and my large language. And not only is it very overwhelming and in some cases confusing, but what I think I'm most keen to sit down and kind of talk to you about is kind of what we highlighted in that intro is that you are really an expert adversary on, keeping the human pulse alive inside of some of these fancy new tech toys. And so kind of just want to kick it off. I was reading some of your content. You often talk about the importance of finding that middle ground, like where the empathy actually meets the efficiency. What does that balance look like in practice when you're designing AI, driven experiences or solutions? Like, how do you find that balance?
what a way to get us started, right? What a
Dude, we
big
waste no
question there.
time.
I know, right? We're just going to jump right on in. Let's go right to the deep end on this, right? It really always starts off with that age old question, right? What exactly are we trying to solve with this AI stuff? And it's a little bit of that weird balance of, how much of this do you want human facing? How much of this do you want machine facing? What's really appropriate for that machine facing stuff? I'll actually cite a real world example. It was something that we did when I was supporting building an AI solution. This was in the healthcare industry, specifically for insurance payers. And one of the really sensitive topics that comes up, right, that we were actually kind of straddling with is what happens when you've got somebody who, is coming in. They're not the person that is the member or the patient, but it's a family member, and that family member lost that patient or lost that family member, right? And so that conversation kicks off with, hey, my loved one just passed away, right? And what you want to do is you want to make sure, yeah, of course, you want to address the main portion of that, the transactional portion of it. But you don't want to also at the same time damage your brand, your reputation by just saying, okay, well, we canceled the service and that's the end of that, right? You want to pull that person in.
Got you. Like sprinkle in that empathy, if you will.
Right. And I mean, that little bit of empathy goes a long way, not to give away the keys of the kingdom there, but
Right.
That's what builds our customers' desire, and it continues to build our brand, grow our brand, and allow future business opportunity with whom you're working with.
No, it resonates, man. It resonates. So I want to just on that, I wanted to ask. So I've been seeing, especially on the LinkedIn platform and different news articles, I am seeing some large enterprise companies
Yeah.
just massive layoffs. And they're saying, look, it's because we are using advanced technology and AI. We're able to supplement that kind of like burden or cost overhead. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I just kinda wanted to pick your brain, like, what's your position on that? Because, there are scenarios, like, let's call a spade a spade. There are scenarios where AI, if it's a very administrative or very on the surface type of you don't need the empathy, man, go for it. If you could save it like, there's 50% of me that feels like some of these large enterprise companies are missing the mark on how important that human-centric involvement is. So, like, I'm rambling now, but what's your take on that?
So honestly, it's a pendulum swing, in my opinion, and we see this time and again. If you actually go back, let's just go back as far as even 20 years ago, when you really started to see a lot of e-commerce transformations going on. You saw a lot of the same patterns happening back then as you're seeing now.
Mhm.
I actually saw something not that long ago. It was it's another article that popped up on my feed in LinkedIn, and it was comparing what we're seeing in AI to what we saw in the dot-com bubble. This all kind of resonates together when you
Yeah.
get to it at the end. But what people forget is that there is some pain that we're going to feel from this fresh idea of automating these experiences. But what is forgotten is when you introduce a new tool into an environment like AI, it incepted this idea. If you think back to Inception, it's infected our brains with this idea of, oh, we're going to automate all these things. It's going to make our lives so much better, so much easier. But what we forget is it also brings in new challenges,
Right.
new areas where jobs are going to be needed in order to support that utility. So I come back to the dot-com stuff. I was going through digital e-commerce transformation back in 2005. I was supporting AT&T, and during those transformation journeys, what ended up happening is you have the simplistic surface of here's the transaction we're trying to automate, but there's always going to be some sort of failure. And
Mhm.
when that failure happens, well, who's going to pick up the work or what's going to pick up the work? Usually it's a who.
Yeah.
And you need people to do that. You need people to keep the AI finely tuned, another area that isn't really heavily understood. And so another pendulum swing that I see happening is it's a shift also of almost kind of going back into a little bit more industrial kind of operating. So
Yeah.
we created this AI tool and it's an information hound, right? It's really good at rock hounding through information, but you still need infrastructure. You still need the facilities to run all the servers that's going to, operate these things. You need people that are working in mining industries, in electric companies, in water facilities. You've got, all kinds of different applications that really has this broad effect that even though it seems like it's a real scary thing on the surface, it's really not when you really get down to it. The way how that market can evolve, it can evolve wildly.
Yeah. Dude, it really is so fascinating to me because I am of the same opinion as you, where as shiny and fancy as these new fun toys are,
Yeah.
it cannot replace that human-centric and to your point, yeah, it is gonna open up a ton of new jobs that maybe we haven't even considered yet. Like, look, when email going back to the dot com, when email first came out, nobody like, there weren't businesses sending emails. It was
Right.
such a
Right.
slow kinda integration or implementation of that, and we haven't even seen the long game of what some of this AI technology can do. And then last point on this, because there's a couple things I want to get into, is like for me specifically, I still think that there's room for us to continue to grow in using AI in optimizing like the review of
Yeah.
a million data points and give me concise configurations. Like there's still a lot of grass on the field in that department. And I feel like especially at the beginning of this year, everybody is like ditched that type of data model and gone straight to let's just make it talk like a human. If
Yeah,
I can make it talk like a human, then problem solved. So
right.
it's definitely the two-way street of how I'm especially assessing AI and the different technologies right now. Is it like, am I looking to replace or am I looking to optimize, especially for something like internally?
Exactly. And it kind of brings into this realm of like augmentation, really.
Yeah.
But it's so true that let's look at it from even a slightly more simplified angle, right? You're looking to sell a product to somebody. And okay, maybe you want to create a tooling that allows your people who are on the ground to try to sell your product, a tooling that can provide recommendation. That's a very, very powerful and a
Yeah.
very consistent use case I hear about all the time. Um, but it's also a very tricky use case because what you really are effectively doing is you're creating this tool to generate recommendations, but the AI itself is also easy to trick, and
Yeah.
it'll give you a recommendation based on what, and we're very wildly unaware of this, based on whatever we tell it. So if I don't even realize it half the time. I use my AI tools in all of my work streams,
Same.
and I have to constantly stop myself and go, "Okay, I've gotten this far." I have to almost like pause in the middle and go, "I need to stop doing what I'm doing here, and I now need to go to a peer, talk to my peer, show my peer what I've done,
Mhm.
and get a sanity check going because my peer's going to see something I didn't. And even though I tell the AI, hey, I want you to give me an honest assessment, it's still biased.
It just very agreeable. I've had to ask mine, like, "You
Yes.
don't have to be a yes man, like, give me honest feedback," you
Oh
know?
my goodness. Yeah. I actually, it's funny too, because like I did this very recently. I told it, I'm like, listen, I need you to start like contradicting me at certain points. And it
Right?
goes, and it agrees with me and it goes, oh, yes, you're right. I do need to
Yeah.
start contradicting with you. And then it gives you all kinds of crazy nonsense. Like it's just really funny.
That is funny. Man, I could go on for days about this. Here's what I want, because here's a word that I don't think that I truly understand. And so I'm looking to you to kind of share with myself and the listeners. Beyond speed, redefining competitive advantage. You've said previously that speed alone doesn't create it, signal fidelity does.
Hmm.
If I was using you as a chat GBT, I would say, can you explain what signal fidelity means like I'm a 5-year-old? That would probably be my prompt. So, like, can you unpack that idea for us? And, like,
Yeah,
what does that truly mean in the context of AI?
yeah, absolutely. And here's my best Chat GPT
Like I'm a
impersonation I'll give, right?
5-year-old, Brian. Let's hear it.
Chris, absolutely, I can explain this to you as if you were a 5-year-old.
Uh,
So what I mean by signal fidelity, right? There is in this same article I saw around the .com versus AI, what we're really are seeing a lot of is a lot of fear of missing out, right?
mhm.
And as we all know, when we're operating in a fear of missing out, there's a lot of noise that's coming out of, what it is exactly we want to do. So it's a little bit of a multi-part answer, right? So signal fidelity can mean a lot, but it really comes back around to, how Steve Jobs would operate, right? He would zero in the main signal that we really need to pursue after and put most of his focus toward that signal. You're always going to have a little bit of noise that you're going to have to deal with.
Mhm.
But what does that signal really mean in this new territory, this unexplored area, right? Well, there's so much that we still don't know. So, signal, starting with its core basics, like what exactly do we want to use this AI because we're going to miss out and our competitors are doing this, but why do we want to use this AI? What's the real world problem we want to try to tackle and solve? And it's almost pressure testing in a lot of ways our assumptions.
Yeah.
The other half of that though is you also have this other angle of you might have a really good, strong, airtight use case for why you want to use your AI tool. And I could tell you that there's a lot of people that are out there that have really remarkable ideas about what problems they want to solve. And they may have some ideas about how they think they want to approach the problem, but that's the wrong signal that they're chasing.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is they're solving for ways of doing things based on how it's always been done. You've got this brand new tool, and you have to start using your imagination to think, well, okay, this is how we've always done it, but maybe we're going to approach things a little differently. A little bit of an illustrative example. Uh, you know, most automation processes, and even in my current work, I see a lot of people looking to do upfront automation, right? I've got a customer coming in. They want to ask me a question, whatever that question is, and I want to react and respond to that question. So you automate upfront and you try to see how much of that you can filter out before you ultimately get it to a person to then handle, the actual hard stuff, right? It's a pretty classic pattern. Now ChatGPT shows up on the scene and it produces this promise of, well, we can make it talk like a human. So now we can go one step further. And while that sounds good on the surface, right, we come back to that human empathy part of it. And we start to say, well, hold on a second. Is that really where we want the AI to be introduced? Does it have to be upfront and notable by the customer? Or would it be better to make it where the customer doesn't even know they're talking to an AI? Not
Yeah.
right? Just, I think I'm talking to a person. You are talking to a person, but the person is being assisted by the AI, right? And
Hmm.
how you think about that. And that little perspective shift is very powerful because now you're talking about, well, I probably still need to have these people operate, but I can use my upfront AI to filter the noise, my more advanced AI to surface up information quicker,
Hmm.
which then has its own savings that come along with it. And I get the best of all worlds. I still have that human element. My customers trust me because I'm being human with them.
That's huge. And man, you're speaking my language. So obviously, I work for BPOs and call centers where debt recovery. One of our first adoptions of AI, outside of it, like building propensity to pay models and just like strictly analyzing data, is I forget what the vendor's name is. I would give him a plug, but I forget the name. So on our debt collectors or agents' computers, we had
Mhm.
like an AI guided listening widget that would be installed on their computer for calls. And what that widget would do, we could feed it, let's say, ABC Company's contract, and we
Right.
would feed it ABC Company's, hey, these are common reasons that people don't make payment. And this is the exact clause of the agreement that they agreed to. So in real time, when you have a person with empathy and there's a genuine dialogue, if there's a debtor on the phone that's, oh, well, I didn't know I only had 7 days, that AI listening component will go, hey, Chris, right here. So that the agent, without skipping a beat, could go, oh, Brian, but look, on clause 7.4 of that agreement that we executed, just so you know, it states. And so that's so wild. And that's such a beautiful marriage of how this type of new fancy technology and human connection and relationship can work in synergy. And the other
Mhm.
takeaway that I got from signal fidelity from what you were saying is we gotta step away from what is historically normal. And that kind of drives me to something that I say over and over, and that is the power is in the prompt. And so how you
Yeah.
ask is like it is phenomenally important to the result that you're going to get if you're building a language model or you're just playing in the GBT space.
Yeah, and I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. There, even in the we think back to ChatGPT. ChatGPT's only been out for 3 years. Insanely powerful tool,
Yeah.
and insanely it has grown in an insanely rapid rate, as to what it's able to do and how much it's able to surface up. But you're absolutely right. The power of that prompt is going to fuel everything else that happens, right? we talked earlier about how, like, I have to step away because I've been working on a particular thing for a while, and now all of a sudden I realize sanity check time,
Yeah.
right? And that sanity check comes around because as I'm going, right, I'm entering in my prompt, and I'm like, if you were to see some of my prompts, my prompts are like bloated out the yin yang.
Yeah.
It's, like, it's like, all right, because you just, I'm in my background of doing product strategy and
Being as
have,
specific as like
like,
line for
really
line how I want you to spit this output to me.
exactly very verbose in like how I'm saying things, and but then also having to give it like, hey, additional commands like, hey, just make sure, I want you to cite your sources when you do this, give me an honest comparison, right? And
Hmm.
little things like that that go a long way. But there's another element now that we're also starting to walk into, and that is, as people look at this tool, my background being computer science, as I was doing my undergrad studies, and in computer science, we learn how to do computer programming, like, the whole 9 yards. But it's kind of an interesting thing because I liken what I'm seeing ChatGPT as, it is a form of a programming language in a way.
Hmm.
It's a language where I get immediate feedback. I am typing to it and it's responding to me, but it's what I would call a generalized programming language. I can throw anything I want at it and it'll have some capability to answer the things that I'm putting. And I noticed my camera just kind of blurred there for a second.
All good.
But we're now starting to reach into this territory where you've got people who are using it for legal advice. You've got people who are trying to skirt around, having to go out of pocket for marketing or for, exploring into territories that maybe historically a person was never comfortable exploring, but now they're like, I'll give it a shot.
Hmm.
And more recently, right, I've kind of been hearing this a lot, vibe coding, right? And trying to use that to build applications with
Yeah.
with all the bells and whistles and everything attached to it. And I can already hear anyone of your viewers that are computer developers of any sort or software developers right now cursing me out.
Right.
Just be like, don't mention vibe coding. No, but the slop that comes out. And I would say that, we're in this space now where you have to go a little further than prompting, right?
Hmm.
There's a industry standard that you've got to apply. There's frameworks that you're going to want to codify, disciplines, and all of that takes time to really build out. You're going to want to peer review it with experts in the field, you know, because that's the real big thing that's going to come out at the end of the day.
No, for sure.
Yeah. But imagine the power that you get out of that if you could use those frameworks to suddenly open the doors up to a broader volume of things that you want to get through. You know,
Yeah. Gosh, I want to touch on so much that you just answered there. My mind is racing because, dude, this is the world that we live in right now.
yeah,
Okay. So, first thing, and I'm just going off of memory because now I'm like, let's go. I myself will A B test different prompts from being very hyper specific, and the prompt is like taking up multiple paragraphs to something very vague and just kind of going, hey, let whatever you think your interpretation of what I'm asking is. And so it's super interesting, especially from like I use it most often from a marketing component, like, hey, how can I develop
right.
content on this? And it's so funny because sometimes the more detailed one where I think I know exactly what I want, when it spits it out, I'm going, this is kind of rubbish. But when I let it just go free reign and I'm not putting up guardrails, that's really where the idea is. And I'm, dude, this is a great output and it's immediate. So I mean, like, dude, I agree so hard with that. The power is in the prompt. And the second point that I want to make, and gosh, for everybody listening, hands down, and I bet Brian will agree, the biggest misstep of how we're using this shiny new fancy technology is the peer review. Sometimes you get an instant response. Like, we live in the world of immediacy, right? You get an instant response. You're like, that's it. That's the answer. That's the route. Let's keep digging down this exact funnel of a hole. Taking that step back, the going for a walk, going for a peer review, that is the magic and how you create that synergy, the cohesion behind shiny new toy. And come on, man, let's bring the human element. Let's keep some realism back in the game as well.
Exactly. And when I say things like, it's not speed alone, that's exactly it, right? Speed is certainly a part of it, but
Hmm.
you have to know when to take a break.
Yeah.
You have to know when it's time to say, okay, I got really far, but now I need someone or something to just keep me straight on this, right?
Hmm.
Did I go and actually I had this literally happen to me yesterday. I was working on some features that I was trying to document out, and I'm sitting there and I'm on a rhythm, I'm on a groove, I'm just punching away, and I've got like basically all my bullets filled out, and then I go back and I start reading everything, and then I go, well, wait a minute, and I'm like, this sounds really good from my perspective, and I have a little bit of an engineering focus in my mind,
Yeah.
but then I sit there and I go, yeah, but holy crap, I got to put this in front of people.
Yeah.
This is
Like,
not going to work if I put it in front of
what's
a
the other
person.
perspective?
Right, right. And I don't necessarily know, I tend to build software that supports customers. Sometimes it supports the people that are handling the calls or the
Hmm.
chats. And other times it's to help facilitate the work in between. But it's still like there's an audience there. I've got to make sure it makes sense to the audience.
Yeah. No, which is, dude, that's honestly such a good segue into the next thing that I wanted to pick your brain on, which is really that translating across different disciplines or departments. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I know one of your superpowers is that connecting the dots, connect the dots that don't look related, translating between engineers, designers, executives. Like, talk to me a little bit about your experience at how that, you drive the alignment with this complex AI, but so that there's synergy across those multiple disciplines. Because to the point that you just made, if you're talking to another data science or engineer, their vibe, you could use all the coding language and they're, oh, I'm on the same. But you talk to a sales Yahoo like me or somebody in customer support, they're going, Brian, man,
Yeah.
you lost me at vibe coding.
Right, right. It's like, what is that vibe coding? Tell me more. And then
Yeah.
it goes like, this, that, and the other thing. It's kind of funny though, because that superpower, right? So my background, I mentioned, computer science was my undergraduate study. It kind of funny too, because I went from learning all the ins and outs of algorithm efficiencies and learning how to actually write code, understanding, and I'm going to toss some fairly complicated sounding terms, although some of your viewers, I'm sure, will
Lay
be
it
like,
on me.
they'll probably be like, this guy sounds like he knows enough just to be dangerous. But like certain object oriented programming principles, like tight coupling versus loose coupling. What do we have? Oh man, I just had a brain fart.
Let's
There's a
go.
there's a particular
Hey,
framing
hashtag
there,
human. Brian
right?
is human. That's we're talking to humans on this podcast.
Exactly. And as you did that, the memory came back in. Composition
Okay.
versus abstraction, right? And
Hmm.
these are all principles that through my educational foundation I apply day in and day out in everything that I do. So, rough translation, right? Where do I go with this? So, I have this background in computer science. I grew up in the business contact center support and then
Mm.
eventually software development world. So I kind of had this really incredible opportunity to just be able to live in both of these worlds and really be able to translate even between, if I were to say talk to my engineers, I could talk shop with my engineers, bring it back to, my business stakeholders and articulate it in a way where they understand what I'm talking about. Well, that superpower comes about from all of that in between. Come back to my earlier example. Well, hey, like, we talk about AI and using it and using it in ways of how we've always kind of approached solving the problems, right? I'm going to do upfront automation, yada yada yada.
Hmm.
Um, but then seeing the layers behind it, right? Like, okay, we're going to do this upfront automation, and of course, you're going to have a bunch of people in the room, all different walks of life, different perceptions on it. Your engineers are going to be really excited because they're working on this cool new thing. Your stakeholders might be a little resistant, might be a little hesitant because they're fearful of
That's what
losing
I'm
their
seeing.
jobs,
Yeah.
right? But the reality is being able to showcase, well, look, what we need to talk through, it's not going to be a you're gone, right? It's how do we reimagine the way we operate? So all of this upfront stuff is going to get handled by the AI.
Hmm.
We're going to introduce, there's going to be failure points. So let's do a small little test. Let's see how it affects. I can already kind of predict where we're going to need additional help. Well, hey, why don't we have it where we can start framing up what that looks like and connecting it all together? There's a ripple effect. So in healthcare, right, I see the patterns of everything's about member facing and all the challenges that happen with the member and all that stuff. But what usually gets forgotten is, well, what about the provider? Right. And if you influence and affect the provider, your member benefits from it. Right. And so
$100.
it's the same general idea. Internally now, that is okay. I've got my stakeholder here. We're going to automate this piece, but we're going to have all this other work. It's work that you maybe have traditionally called special projects, but now
Yeah.
you're able to put more energy and effort into those.
No, it's super interesting. And it's especially, you keep bringing up healthcare. And I think that it's such a strong example, especially because of the sensitivities of either the dialogue that you're having with patients, the sensitivities
Yeah.
and the complexities. I mean, you've got healthcare provider, most of the time there's insurance involved, and insurance paperwork, coordination of benefits, like all of the real, dot the i's, cross the t's. If one thing is missed in that transaction, like
Yeah.
that's when the machine stops. And so I kind of want to drive it to, what do I have here, the empathy metric, like measuring what matters, in a sense of like empathy can sound intangible, but especially when you're talking about like operationalizing, is that a word? Let's pretend like it is.
Pretend it's a word, even if
We'll
it
pretend.
isn't.
I feel
I
like it rolled
I
off the tongue.
I kind of use that even in my regular day to day. Like,
Yeah,
we
okay,
need to
then hey,
operationalize this,
for
right?
sure it's
Like,
a word. So, but like in that healthcare space, how are you measuring empathy in terms of context of product design for AI in that world? Like
yeah,
what's some practice
it,
there?
so it's actually a pretty tough nut to crack. But you can't just point to like a single metric and go, it's, traditionally we'll say CSAT.
Yeah,
Everybody and their cousin will measure CSAT. And CSAT's a good indicator of some things, right?
certainly.
But it also really boils back into, what was the transaction at play? You're in debt collection. So I guarantee CSAT from debt collectors, it's like going to the lost luggage kiosk.
Yeah,
Nobody's coming to you because they, had a good experience. They're coming to you because something is going on that they need your help with, right?
definitely. But we give them a good experience, Brian. All
Of
right.
course. Of course.
Authentic, no empathy.
Right, right. But of course, like, hey, look, here's the empathy angle of it. Like, hey, I'm a debt collector.
Yeah,
I understand what you might be going through, right? And there might be solutions to help with navigating through that particular pain point.
yeah,
And so where your real measure of empathy starts to come in, it's the starting with that, maybe that initial CSAT to get you at least those leading indicators, actually lagging indicators in all truth.
hmm,
But it's also using, coming back to, where's the power of that AI? That AI can also help you with surfacing up what are some of your leading indicators? What are some of the hidden predictors, the hidden intents of what's going on? So I'll come back to healthcare. What do people go to insurance companies for when they're having a problem with healthcare, right? Do they go to a healthcare insurance provider because, they were everything was fine, they're happy go lucky, and, they are just like stopping by to say hello? Of course not,
Chances
right?
are no.
Chances are not, right? Are they just looking to understand? And I frame this way on purpose. Are they just looking to understand whether or not their copay is $30 versus $50? No, they're planning to do something
Hmm.
in the not too distant future. That's why they're asking you to begin with, right?
Yeah.
We know that. So you mentioned earlier about, hey, you've going through all this paperwork, this coordination, and now you miss that one thing, the machine stops. When that machine stops, and here comes the real empathy connection point. When the machine stops between the provider and the insurance company, that's transactional.
Yeah.
When it stops for a member or a patient, that's devastating.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's personal. You know
It's
what I mean?
very, yeah,
It
right?
feels
Like
personal.
you feel that. And it's not just personal. Sometimes it can be financially detrimental.
Yeah.
I go from having say I was going for an outpatient procedure. I go from suddenly having we'll say $100 bill to now looking at a $10,000 bill. What am I
Big
supposed to
difference.
do? And,
Yeah.
especially if I'm like on, say, like, I'm a Medicare recipient, there's a high probability I'm on a fixed income. I only have ever so much assets available to me. Like, how am I supposed to afford that? I might be making some very tough decisions from that,
Yeah.
and that has a ripple effect, right? So even just looking at even an example as small as that, it's going into that one step further, right? And starting to measure what is the actual impact of the work that you're doing. And how you maybe know you're doing well, right? Would be, well, if you have it set up in a way where, okay, you've got a good CSAC coming through, but you also have a pretty good strong accounting book, right? You've removed unnecessary barriers out of your way. You're going to see that come out in your margins.
Yeah.
You're going to see that come out in your growth from year to year.
No, for
People
sure.
people are going to come back to you
The
because,
effectiveness of the adoption of some of this. Uh,
right, it's trust building.
it
And
really is.
once you gain that trust, now, of course, it's hard to regain trust once you lose it. But once you gain that trust, that person will continue to return to you.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that that if we stay tried and true, it makes it very easy for customers to come back. You reduce your effort in trying to pull them in.
Yeah. No, 100%. And just I was curious, just sticking on empathy, um, it's like you had mentioned there are subliminal triggers that you could find in dialogue. Like you said, someone's
Mhm.
just going to insurance, hey, what's my copay? Or hey,
Right,
can you walk?
right.
But really, through tone, you are able to highlight like, well, this guy sounds really angry, or this guy sounds like he's in a rush, or he sounds curious. There are these like trees that you can build based off of tone and tonality alone, similar to like
Absolutely.
what we're trying to feed the AI bot itself. Like if you are a patient calling into a provider and they're using some type of AI technology, if this person is crying, you want your bot and that language model to instantaneously detect, man, this person is really emotional. So maybe I speak to him in a higher tone of voice. And like and we're only on the surface of the level of complexity of getting there.
Exactly.
But dude, I think it's just that's what's fascinating about it.
Exactly. And I'll add in to everything you were just saying there, right? That's a trigger point in my opinion, right now to say this is beyond transactional, right? You do need that human connection at this point.
Yeah.
A person's upset. A machine is not really going to be able to interpret that. There is a lot of practice on sentiment
Mhm.
analysis that goes on. I've
That's what it
actually
is, sentiment analysis.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to think of that.
I had actually explored that when, and in fact, we employed it to a certain extent. Really, really difficult in a chat-based kind of engagement. But when we were building, was for Humana, when we were initially building the AI, and this was a natural language understanding bot, we were initially building this thing out. We were trying to also tease out that sentiment, right? Is this person frustrated? Is this person upset?
Mhm.
What was the core thing that this person was engaging on? I come back around to my very early on example of, hey, my family member passed away, who happened to be the customer, right? Those are automatic indicators to say this requires that extra level
We
of
better get
human
you over to
engagement.
somebody
Yeah.
who's gonna hear you.
Right, right. And continue to foster and build that trust with that person, especially when you're dealing with something that really is going to hit you personally,
Mhm.
especially health. Like, like, hey, it's my
Yeah,
well-being
man.
it's on the line.
No, definitely. Gosh, what a good segue. We're going from empathy to now I wanna talk about ethics a little bit. So, I feel like keeping on the string of a healthcare provider, you have an ethical responsibility to make sure that whatever technology you're using it, if you're using it in that capacity, does have empathy baked into it because of LTV, lifetime value. You obviously want to preserve the integrity of trust with your patients, your whole demographic, but more to that on the ethical side. Like, here's I heard an interview the other day with the famous Sam Altman, OpenAI. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, how people are using the GBT space to find information that otherwise they would have had to pay someone to do. Like, I
Hmm.
created an LLC. I have no business creating. I didn't know how to do it, but you bet I went to the GBTs. I was like, "Hey man, can you give me a step-by-step breakdown?" So that's um non-sensitive, non-complex, but a use case in the world of like what Sam Altman was talking about is people are using it to almost like self-diagnose
Hmm.
or a certain healthcare issue or challenge they may be experiencing in terms of symptoms,
Yep.
or
Yep.
using it like, and this is where it gets scary, almost like as a therapist and like
Ooh.
unloading their issues. And so, and then all of a sudden the prompt go, you know what? It sounds like you'd be better off, and you're like, whoa, what? A
Yeah.
therapist would never say that. So let's jump in. I know that was a loaded question, but let's talk about the ethics, the ethical side
Hmm.
of this world of AI that we're playing in.
By the way, it sounds loaded, but it's actually a really imperative conversation. But I will tell you this, I could probably
Let's
go
hear it.
on for an hour
Let's go.
just on like using AI to self-diagnose or as a therapist. There's a really funny thing about that. And then I'll dive in a little bit on the ethics. There's a really funny thing though, and actually more recently I've been starting to talk about this, is AI is really like holding a mirror up to yourself when you really get down to it. So I saw something on LinkedIn about like you know, there's somebody who's out there that's now like in a relationship with a generative AI chat GPT type of thing. And I start chuckling because I go, well, they're actually in a relationship with
With
themselves
themselves. I was just gonna say that.
because
Yeah.
they're talking to themselves, right? It's an echo chamber. It's just throwing things back out at you.
She's very agreeable, Brian.
Right, right. Like you're absolutely right. We should just stay in tonight and play, Diablo 5 or whatever
My
these
gosh,
days.
dude.
Right? Like, oh my goodness. But the ethics part of it, absolutely, right? And so where you start hitting into a lot of the ethics, especially in self-diagnosis in healthcare, there's a couple of different schools of thoughts that I've started to see where people go, hey, we really need to have it where if somebody tries to engage in like ChatGPT, which is very general, you can probably poke at it and ask certain questions, but we should probably put some guardrails around that says, if somebody asks about this, you automatically just stop the conversation and you go, you need to go talk to your doctor. I'm not a trained physician,
Yes.
right? Now, I'm a little opposed to that because you might have someone that is not really asking for a diagnosis. What they're really are doing is they're curious and inquisitive.
Mm.
Maybe they're just exploring. Maybe they're doing research on a particular thing, like, let's say like on cancer, right?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody is doing a dissertation, right? And so they're not using it
No,
in
you are right. It's like, dude,
right.
and that's like the power of the prompt, the difference between going, "I have cancer. Can you break down?" Or
Right.
like what I do is pretend that you have cancer. And even that mixture
Yes.
of your prompt is going to encourage different type of, sorry to cut you off, but you're spot on.
But no, you're absolutely right too. And I love the inject, by the way, because it's the bypass, right? You can bypass it by simply saying something like that. So I am in the camp of you do need the guardrails there, right? The
Mhm.
ethics do need to be there. And why is that? Because we have seen, I forget where I saw this, but I'm pretty sure there was an article where it's every time somebody goes to ChatGPT and they start laying out, this is my symptoms, this is what I have going on. And it almost always ends with it suggesting to the user, whether it's GPT, disclaimer for anyone on here that is from OpenAI, I am not claiming that you guys have actually done this. That said, I think I'm now legally covered.
Yeah.
But any generative AI tool, right, where it suggests committing suicide,
Yeah.
big ethical black hole, right? And
Super.
it's almost like people hear that and now they're also got this idea. I just incepted them. I'm Leo DiCaprio dropping the top inside
Yeah.
their safe that they've got in the lower depths of their mind. It won't go away now. But the truth is that you can have guardrails that say, that alerts, disclaimer of some sort, where it's, hey, at the end of the day, everything that I'm providing here, if you truly feel you have these symptoms, go see your doctor, right? You
Mhm.
can still give information out. We've done that. WebMD was always the big thing, right? I'm going to go out there, look up my symptoms. Oh, look at that. I have cancer. It was
Yeah.
always, I have
Almost every
cancer.
time I checked WebMD, I'm walking away with a far bigger concern than I
Right.
originally thought. Yeah.
Which meanwhile, all I had was the sniffles.
No,
Like,
exactly. I just got a runny nose and
right. And it's like, oh, look at that. You have cancer. Oh, great.
yeah.
But I do recall a story. I was at, this was in 2022. So around the same time ChatGPT really hit the scene.
Mhm.
I was at a customer experience summit that was hosted by Microsoft. Microsoft was debuting Copilot at the time, and they literally talked about the very topic that we're on here. And it's all comes back around into when you're prompting at it, you're putting in your own biases.
Right.
I'm saying, and you can even go as far as just dropping the word cancer in your and it now throws the bias toward cancer. So when it starts to regurgitate back out at you, it says, well, all the symptoms you have described do suggest you have this form of cancer because it's predicting off of the
Yeah.
words,
Because of
not
what you drove it in that. Yeah.
right. And now equally, I've had conversations with ChatGPT where I've no, I slanted it in a direction, and then I try to pull it out of that slant. Good
She's
luck.
not coming back.
No.
We lost her.
I sit there and I'm just like, I have to just kill the thread and jump to a new one.
Yeah.
But it takes that discipline to recognize it.
Dude, 100%. That's so funny. I've done that too. I've done that too. On the ethics side, and then we'll jump a little bit. On the ethics side, like Do you think that businesses have an ethical responsibility to let you know when they're using AI? So let's parse it in two scenarios. So a simple one is obviously if you call in ABC Healthcare, and you talk to a bot. Is there like what's your position on, hey, Brian, just to let you know, this is Chris. I am an AI bot and I'm happy to help you out. I can always transfer you to a live agent whenever you're ready. So one, letting them know up front. What's your play on that?
So I'd say that there's two answers that go to this, right? The first and foremost answer is by law. You actually do need to, in certain industries, you have to
You
disclose it,
have to, yeah. Like in our
right?
industry, in healthcare industry, I'm pretty
You
sure it's
have to
a
disclose it.
requirement. Yeah.
And I don't see that as a bad thing, right? I do see that as an ethical responsibility, especially right now. My opinion can sway as we start to evolve a little further.
Hmm.
But for now, I would say that my opinion is yes, as a business, you have more than an ethical responsibility. And I will incentivize it beyond ethics. For the sake of your brand and building trust, you do have a responsibility to alert your customers that they are, in fact, speaking with an AI. If your customers are not comfortable engaging with an AI tool, and they will figure it out fast. Customers are
Smarter than we give them credit for.
way smarter than we give them credit for. And I shouldn't even say it that way. I think that
Right.
all customers are smart. Customers always find a way to figure it out, right? Your customer will figure it out. When they do, they will leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody wants to feel like they're getting tricked. That's kind
Right.
of what you feel like, you know? Again, it's personal then,
It
you know?
is. It is. Right. And, there's, of course, little quirky things you can do too to make it feel a little bit more humanistic as you do it. But
Mhm.
even then, you still want to disclose that,
Yeah.
hey, I am an AI powered, assistant. I'm here to try to help you, right? Whatever your branding that you want to do with it. It's whether it's ethical or not, I think is technically moot. I do
No.
think it is ethical because of all the different challenges that can come up. But if you want to survive as a business, trust is paramount.
Paramount.
Yeah,
Let's go.
there we go.
Would you feel the same way with so let's say that I sent an email to my and this actually just happened, to my home insurance because
Okay.
I've got a claim filed and I asked them a bunch of questions and they email me back. And it could be AI, it could not be AI. Do you think that they would have a ethical responsibility to like put a tagline at the bottom, just be like, hey, just so you know, this email was completely transcribed through AI.
It's so transcribed.
Or
So like
not
another
transcribed, you know what I mean? Generated.
yeah.
It was created.
If it was generated, but I still think you do at this early stage. And here's why, right? So it's homeowners insurance. You may have a claim going on there. All right. Most average claims that like like I've ever done with my homeowners insurance is I had a hailstorm hit and my aluminum siding got dinged to all heck.
Yeah.
Right. And now I got to go replace it. I got to get vinyl siding and all this fun stuff. On the surface, doesn't feel like anything really massive. It's cosmetic, but it's
No,
still
but it's just a
money.
pain in the butt and you got to take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here comes a real world story that I actually had happen. Was I actually had that happen. My siding got completely ruined in a hailstorm. I'm getting it replaced, and as we're going through the replacement, brand new vinyl siding, all that's going through just fine. And the uh, the adjuster that I was working with at the time, they didn't include replacing. There was like fake shutters basically, and it was a nice little aesthetic piece. They didn't include replacing the fake shutters. Well, of course, you can't replace the siding without removing the
You're going to
shutters.
rip them off. Yeah.
You rip them off, and now they're damaged. So now
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean that's not included, right? But if I go through a bot, right, and a bot tells me, well, yeah, that wasn't really included in the estimation, yada yada yada, and I don't know that it was generated from a bot, I'm going to, try to, of course, talk back with this person. And as we just discussed earlier, the bot's slanted now.
Yeah.
Its bias is slanted. I'm not going to be able to pull it away from that slant no matter
To
what
the
I
book
do.
on policy, there's no way that this
Boom.
guy is getting,
Right. Boom,
100%.
boom, boom. I now don't have the ability as the customer to be able to say, hey, look, that needs to be part of this adjustment. I'm not getting a like for like
Mhm.
replacement done based on the damages that I had incurred. And of course, let's talk about the ripple effect, right? So that affects my homeowner's value. That in turn is going to also give me a sour taste in my mouth with the insurance company I'm working with.
100%.
I'm now going to go blab to all of my friends. Don't
Yeah.
ever use this group.
Yes.
Don't ever go to them, right? Like, this is my experience that I had, and this, that, and the other thing. Now my home, like, I got the siding replaced, but it looks terrible. You know, now as the individual, of course, I'm damaged. But now your reputation as the insurance company, your reputation is damaged.
Big time.
And especially now, I go and I toss that out on, this has been around for ages, but you go on social media, you broadcast that, your reach
Yeah.
goes so far now.
When at the end of the day, we're talking about replacing panels, it could what, like, not even $300 if that was,
Right.
and it's like,
Exactly.
consider the ripple of all of these unintended and negative consequences versus, yeah, you're right, Brian. We missed that. We'll go ahead and tack it on for you. My bad.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
right?
Like, and by the way, in my particular journey and story, I get on the horn with my adjuster, and my adjuster was like, "No problem, we'll get that
Yeah.
taken care of. Like, we'll straighten that out." And like you said, it was like at the end of the day, it was like I think like $1,200 or something like that.
Okay.
Which
Oh, you got some good ones.
which to me is like that's a considerable amount of money.
No, for sure. But it's the principle of that type of insurance to begin with. And you
Right.
know what? Like I always said this in the restaurant industry, the way that you get a repeat customer is not how great the food tastes, it's how well they respond when something bad happens. And so
Yeah.
now, because you went to that adjuster and you're like, hey, man, come on, line the site. And he goes, oh, Brian, not an issue. Let's take care of it. You're like,
Exactly.
dude, I rock with these guys. They listen to me. This is a real conversation. And so, gosh, we went full circle into that's why the human centric involvement matters in this crazy AI world, dude.
Exactly. Now you have the cue that tells you this was automated. I'm
Yeah.
going to get on with a person at this point.
No, for sure. Dang. Brian, I'm so sorry. I didn't even ask you. We're at the hour mark. I do want to ask you one more question. Do you got time for one more question?
I sure do.
Okay.
Let's make this
Man, that's
happen.
what happens. We just start rapping and I lose track of time and all right, let me hit you. Like real laws around AI. I haven't seen with that, I mean, outside of specific industries,
Yeah.
haven't really seen a lot pop up. There's the EU AI Act,
Mm-hmm.
and that's obviously just for the European Union and is
Yep.
very centered around how are we using AI to scalp and find personal consumer information, PCI, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
But what do you see happening in 2026 with respect to regulation? Do you think that it's going to shift the gear? I know I saved the
It's a
best one for last. Huh?
you
Come on.
you did, and this one is technically a little bit of a grenade, right? So it's going. My prediction.
Mhm.
Don't think we're going to see in the US. I don't think we're going to see a tremendous amount in the next year or two in as much as regulating how AI gets employed in different industries and things like that. However, I do think that the real battle is going to start with copyright laws
Yes.
because big thing, right? What was like the biggest thing we saw lately? It's, well, when AI produces the content, it produced the content. Now, here comes the real battle, right? Well, if I go to ChatGPT and ChatGPT is producing that content, one, what did it source the content off of, right? Do I need to go and now pay royalties to an original content owner, right? hey, by the way, do I, as the person who was using ChatGPT to prompt it, possess now any ownership rights, any
Right.
copyright, right? That's going to become, in my opinion, that's where the real struggle is going to begin, right?
You're spot on.
Yeah. And so is it going to turn into like, hey, yeah, the individual who was engaging it has ownership of it, or whomever was the service provider going to have the rights to it? Or will it be some sort of a weird hybrid of there's partial ownership, there's certain, like, Lord
Yeah.
only knows. Anyone who's ever dealt with copyright in any degree knows it is one of the messiest,
It is, dude.
messiest legal battles, right?
You got Ed Sheeran being sued because 3 notes in his new song match that song from the 19 but actually, dude, that just okay, so outside of just copywriting in general, you got, like, the new Sora, where it's creating images and even these
Yeah.
videos, like a nice little advertisement. I saw, like, a Coach bag turn from a logo into the whole handbag. So, you've got this stuff being generated, or my favorite is there's this AI music generator where you could put in like an old school Biggie Smalls song that was just hard rap and say, you know what, can you make this sound like a Frank Ocean kind of jazzy and just redo it all together? Or make your own music that sounds professionally mixed, professionally mastered. Sure, you're the
Mm-hmm.
one that prompted it, but you didn't create lyrics. You know, had no orchestrate. You just, hey, can you make me a song about Brian and this podcast? Make it sound like a pop hit and boom.
Absolutely.
And so now that stuff goes on charts and you start making money and it's all in that world of copyright.
And what most people forget is I prompted it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a public, well, it's a private company, but like, I'm taking my information, I'm loading it in there. They now have access
And now they have
to
that for
all of
yes.
that prompting that I just did. Even if it's boundary to me, they can still go in there. Now, there's, of course, terms and conditions that have to be revised and looked at, but
Yeah.
like that becomes a possibility. It's actually one of the things that we, because I working with Humana, it's one of the things you can't just go willy nilly entering stuff into Copilot or entering stuff
No, yeah,
into
dude, if from a corporate level, we have so many rules that
so
like,
many
dude,
rules.
don't use our company name. You don't share any. So like ask very vague
Vague
questions.
questions.
Always my chat GBT thinks that I must work with a company called Company ABC
Yeah, right.
because that's just what anytime I'm looking for info, I substitute. Hey,
Oh,
remember Company ABC?
well, and even funnier, so mine thinks that all of my employees' names are John and Jane Smith.
Yeah, dude, I
And
got
it's like,
John Doe is either my best employee or my worst employee at any
right. And
time.
I'm like entering in information going like, exactly. Like, and it's always like, well, gee, John was really cool last week. Why is
Yeah, yeah.
John not cool this week?
That's so funny. But yeah, man, I think you dude, I didn't consider it, but now that you mentioned it, 1000%. I think that the first type of regulations we're gonna see are around the copyright world for
Yeah.
sure.
And,
And
and I'm going to take a guess. We're coming up on 1999 all over again.
yeah.
Napster bad, right? It'll
Yes,
be
dude.
the music industry will be the first ones at that bit.
You know it, you know it. I was gonna say that there's this common theme that I've seen, especially in my industry with regulators, is that a lot of times the laws aren't made until something really bad happens. And so
Yeah.
we just gotta wait for that for whether it's copyright, whether it's
Yep.
something we didn't even think of in the AI sphere, something really
Hmm.
bad is going to happen. And that's when all the lawmakers are going, whoa, 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 wait a minute. We can't let that happen again.
Exactly, right? And it's funny because I can go on for yet another hour just on that alone, but how law is actually very reactive
Yeah.
and what drives the reactions, right?
No, definitely. So, gosh, Brian, man, this is so much fun, dude. Like I said, I've been following you for so long. I think that now is the best time to really dive into the landscape of some of this new fancy technology. I'll let you go, but before I let you go, why don't you tell the people what you're up to, man? What are you doing these days? I'll make sure I share your info, how they can get in touch with you. Like,
Yeah.
tell me about yourself, Brian. What are you doing?
So, I mean, like, right now I'm still supporting Humana at this stage in my life. Yeah, I'm working on a couple of different projects here and there. But my number one passion, right? I've been exploring AI. I'm really diving deep into some of the broader applications for AI, and I'll say that working in the healthcare industry, that little edge that I've gotten from it, it's such a heavily regulated industry.
Yeah.
It does force you, good, bad, or indifferent, to slow down in such a way where it makes you pause and really evaluate, is this really worth it, given the regulations in the way? But I feel that has given me quite an edge when it comes to really bringing in to say, hey, do you really need to slow down here? Or can we move a little bit quicker and, just make sure that we pressure test everything before we go
Yeah.
out there? So, I mean, at this point, I'm really, I'm just out there doing a lot of exploration, trying to network with people, anyone that is interested in talking about how they can maybe bring AI into their universe, or they maybe already have the idea, but how to maybe like best leverage those tools, how to maybe
Yeah.
think about their problems, maybe just a little differently. And, if they're open for it, perspective change. And how do we really get you to build your trust with your customers?
Yeah. Gosh, I love that. My man, Brian Sutherland, you guys heard it here first. I'll make sure I share all of the different contact details and how to get in touch with my boy. This will not be the last time you see my man Brian on Mutual Connections. We have so far 2 other topics that we have spoken. We could go a full other hour on, and I'm going to take him up on that offer, just so you guys know. So my man, Brian, pleasure sitting down. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and we'll catch you on the next one, my man.
Absolutely, Chris. This was an absolute pleasure. So looking forward to it.
Love it. All right, dude. We'll see you, brother. Thanks.
All right. See ya.